Welcome to the First 40 Sports Show with the Goon Squad. It's just Ice Water and me. Black had to take care of some business. So, hot takes, man. I got a hot take. I've been seeing online for the last week about this black NFL team versus white NFL team. So, they're putting the white players against the black players. I want your thoughts on this, man, because I think it's absurd that we're in a day and age where we're separating black and white and even having this conversation where it's a team sport where you have a diverse population, and that's what sports is all about. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is very absurd. One, because of the factor that when you look at the NFL, 70% of the league is African American, right? So it cannot be fair anyway, because of what it is. And the marquee players, not saying they're not great white players in the league too. McCaffrey, you could go down the line. But as you said, what would be the whole purpose of it? I mean, it sounds like somebody's frustrated by even mentioning this. And maybe you're mad because truthfully, it's a billionaire boys club, the NFL is. And we know who holds the purse strings. And the majority of people that are owners are white. So are you mad at that? And that's why you want to have a black versus white type game. And I think it's absurd. We've come this far. You made it. What about the days you could have had that with Jim Brown was playing?
Yeah.
Then that might have been a whole different ball game. You might have maybe even a reason to think so. But now you're making too much money. You're complaining. I mean, what are we talking about?
Yeah. The other thing is, if you're going to set these teams up, I don't know too many defensive backs who are white. So I don't know of any. That
I'm sure they'll find one or two of them or
or two,
com-
but you know,
a converted running back. You know how they do.
yeah, it's like 75% black. It's like it's not fair, and to me, the whole idea is absurd. I don't know who came up with this, but um, relax yourself. This is not good for football or sports or our society. Um, as many people have fought against racism and all this other stuff. I think it's absurd they do even come up with this idea. But your hot take of the week, man.
Yeah, I take just looking at all kinds of different stuff. I want to get your thoughts on. I've been watching very closely because I live in Columbus, Ohio, about the college football signings. Right, big day today was one of the big days for them for college football. A lot of guys that committed, decommitted, different things like that. But one of the things has been a consistent theme we've been hearing is about NIL, and how certain schools have been just throwing crazy money at some of these kids and having them come down to the wire to decide what they want to do. And I want to see what your thoughts are about that. How do you feel about a recruit, um, basically signing for more money instead of the value of the program?
I think this is going to get out of control real soon, and something's going to have to give where it's going to be really regulated because there are college players. I think I read an article. There's a college player who, instead of going into the NFL, he'd probably make more money staying in college with the NIL deal that he has. So why would he even, think about going to professional to the professional ranks if you're going to get paid more and you're probably not going to get paid as much as you would if you just stayed in college. So I think it's going to come to a point where it's going to kind of ruin it for the NFL. I can see the NFL saying, "Hey, we're waiting for these folks to come out, and they're not coming out." And to be honest, let's be honest. The college football and college basketball is the minor leagues for the pro teams, NBA, NFL. And so when you start messing up that, and these guys are getting paid more than they would in their rookie contracts in the NBA and NFL, I think it's going to cause a problem. And then you have these players just jumping transfer portal, playing for one team at one year and then playing for another team. I think it's just going to get out of control. And it's looking like, to me, I know we used to play NCAA football on, the Xbox and PlayStation. That's what it's looking like. It's looking like you could just, plug in a player and then, trying to win a championship. And it's just getting out of control. I think it needs to be regulated before we get to a point where people kind of sour on watching college sports because it's turning into the professional ranks right before our eyes.
Yeah, craziness. One of the pure examples for me is number one quarterback in this class, 2024 class, uh, Dylan Raiola. Uh, Apparently didn't know what he wanted to do, and I don't know if NIL had to do with it, but one would think that's the case. So he initially was committed to Ohio State about a year ago, changed his mind. Then he becomes committed to Georgia. Okay. Now, but mind you, his dad is always been an all-world player in Nebraska, right? Nebraska gets a new coach, or they bring in some new people, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he's going to be the quarterback in Nebraska.
Hmm.
So you leave Ohio State, you leave Georgia, and you go to Nebraska because he's going to turn things around. And last but not least, you have the number one wide receiver in the country, Jeremiah Smith, had verbally committed to Ohio State a year ago. And a number of other schools, because he's from Florida, Florida State, Florida, Miami, were trying to change his mind. He went on several visits down there, went to the on campus, went to games, went to all kinds of stuff that they tried to change, tried to convince him to change his mind. And he said he didn't know. He says, one of like 2 days ago, he says, a lot of schools just throwing cash at me, man. He said they just throwing money. And they promised me all these things. But he said, I thought about Ohio State, and when I went up there, they already had a program. They knew how I was going to use me. He
Yeah.
says, but Miami was, he's trying to figure it out. So the gentleman asked him, how did he make his decision? He says he had like 5 minutes before he was about to make his announcement. And he sat there in the gym by himself. And then he went out to the table and he thought about it. And he said he had to look down in his bag because he had two hats. One was Ohio State, the other one was Miami. He had to look down in the bag to see. And he pulled out the Buckeye and said, I got to go to Columbus. He's like, I belong in Columbus. And Ryan Day, who was hilarious, was at the press conference. They kind of told him at the press conference that they picked up Jeremiah Smith, the number one wide receiver in the country. And he said, really? He turned to the side. He went like,
This is stuff that's been happening undercover all these years. I mean, a lot of
yeah,
players were offered a lot of money to play in a lot of places, and it wasn't legal. It wasn't, it was against the rules. It's just exposing it now.
yeah,
And what's going to happen is the little teams or the teams that don't have the resources are going to lose out. They're going to lose out, and it's going to be a top heavy college, rankings where the rich get richer, and if you don't have resources and you don't have boosters that could pay for players, and you can get sponsors and all that other stuff, you're just going to lose out. That's it.
yeah. I mean, think about it from that standpoint. That's why people are not paying attention. We're headed towards super conferences, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Super conferences. That's why you see all that movement in the SEC. You saw the movement from the Pac-12 being dismantled, and the majority, a lot of the top-notch schools going to the Big Ten, and which is why in college football, clearly they knew they were being pressed. There's no way you could have that much movement and these teams squaring off, some of the best teams in the country squaring off against going off against one another in the conference, and you don't expand the playoff college football playoff. I mean, how can you really say who the top four teams are? You had to go to 12. Because let's say the SEC has three of the best teams in the country, and the Big Ten has three of the best teams in the country. I can't make it because it's only four teams. They had to expand it. Now you're right, but the little smaller schools are gonna have a tough time. It's gonna be real rough. It's gonna be real rough. But we went from one extreme to the next. Oh, maybe Utah get in, or maybe TCU back in the day will get in. No longer. You're gonna have to come with it. And if you do not, the money continues to speak as the motivator for oftentimes in college sports.
Yeah. Let's go to the NFL power rankings. You got San Francisco at number one, followed by Baltimore. We've been talking about Baltimore on our pick show, NFL pick show, as a team that has a path to go to the Super Bowl, whether they win it or not. We don't know, but in the AFC, they can really, at 11-3, they can really kind of pave their way through and get to the Super Bowl. Followed by the Buffalo Bills, who are really trying to get into the playoff picture. Followed by the Dallas Cowboys, who took a hammering by the Buffalo Bills. And at number 5, the Miami Dolphins, which the Cowboys play this week. Number 6, Philly, who dropped 3 in a row. Kansas City, a little shaky. Their receiving core is not what we'd like. Detroit, I don't know. You got Cleveland fall behind them at number 9, and then surprise, surprise, the Cincinnati Bengals without Joe Burrow at number 10. Your thoughts on the power rankings, man?
It's just weird how you say that. I mean, the Bengals have again another team that has nothing to lose and rallying around one another and making moves. I am a little bit surprised that Cleveland's where they are. Um, and Buffalo was what 5?
Buffalo is, I believe, number 4. Um,
Wow,
no, number 3, and they are ahead of the Dallas Cowboys as number 4, I believe.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Dallas Cowboys may win their division, and Buffalo is barely struggling to get
stay.
in the playoffs at
Right,
all.
right.
That's crazy to me. I mean, and what were the Eagles?
The Eagles are like number 6, number 7. Yeah,
That's crazy to me. And maybe hopefully this is week to week, right?
yeah,
Kind of like college basketball poll, but
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you still keep Dallas that high. I really don't. The way that they were dismantled, how do you do that? I mean, Grant, that's what I say. Until they prove differently, maybe after the game versus Miami, then you maybe put them up there. But right now, I think they have to come back and prove that they're worthy. They have to prove that they're worthy to be in that upper echelon. I don't know how they're in top 5 at all. And I'm just saying that based on what I'm seeing, their lack of toughness. So I don't know.
All right. Next story we're gonna hit real quick. Anthony Edwards, man. He puts out a statement. I guess there was a young lady he met online, and text messages were exposed where he was trying to get the young lady to abort the child that him and the young lady produced. So, your thoughts on this? Because it's like these phones, social media, getting these guys caught up, and they're not learning the lesson.
Yeah, that social media can get you in trouble. But I mean, the tough thing about it is, I mean, we got to be honest about it, right? You know, normal people, the so-called normal regular people, some people go through the same thing where they can. And I know this is totally different, but from the standpoint of a young man and a young woman connect physically, and sometimes God might just not want the child for whatever reason, and He might want her not to have it. But I always say from day one, I'll say it to the end, no matter what the circumstances, it is the woman's choice, it's her body. I always felt that way. I've never been one to tell, because I want no one else to tell me what to do with my body. But are we surprised that the young man says that? I mean, granted, you you want to be politically correct, but you got to be honest about it. It's like, man, I ain't really. Some guys at that age are saying, "I'm not trying to take care of a baby," and it's not. I don't think they really think about the point that you're really destroying a life, right? They just know what they don't want, and they're really, I think, considered. He might be considered you messing up my life, even though I know I made a mistake, but I ain't trying to deal with that situation for 18 years. But because he's in the spotlight, and if more people knew who he was, out, they didn't know if he's just a regular guy. You still might catch hell from the people that know you. But I think because he's on the spotlight, it's such a big thing. But you still cannot control people's thoughts or how they feel about certain things. I mean, that's what it is. But are you supposed to do it the right way or say the right thing because you play professional sports? I beg to differ.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. It's a tough situation, and I think people have to realize when you're in the spotlight, you got to move differently. You really have to move differently because that stuff can be exposed. I'm looking at Jonathan Major's situation and how just how how the justice system works for us. And here's another example. And despite all the evidence that's put out there, for you to rule that way and him to lose his livelihood with a certain company, I'm not going to mention it. I may stop watching their product over this because you know, um, you got to make your own decision. But they're looking at public opinion, things of that sort, and they're looking at certain segment of society and where they can get the money from. So you just got to move differently. You got to move differently. You got to be careful. You got to know that there are people that are coming into your circle that are not in your best interest. And when you figure that out, I don't care how good they look. I don't care how they present themselves. You gotta be surround yourself with people that are going to protect you and not go after you. And it's a bad situation on both parts. I don't blame the woman. I don't blame him. They're young. We've all made mistakes like this, but when you're in the public eye and you're dealing with people, especially online, I try not to deal with anybody online. If I don't know them, I'm not dealing with you because I don't know what you're lying about, how you're trying to present yourself, if you are who you are. So I don't deal with it. And I'm not a big public figure, but I imagine if I did become one, I'm not believing anybody that hits my DM and all that other stuff. I don't trust you. I just don't trust you, and I have that in my kind of like in my view that don't trust anybody online. You just don't know. Right? Even the people you do know, you may not know because I've seen people post up stuff that I'm like, wait a minute, that's not them. That's not who they are. That's not they lying, and you just laugh and you just move on. Let's go to NBA real quick. The Celtics and the Bucks have gone 8-2 in their last 10, and the Timberwolves are still rolling, man. 9-1 in their last 10. I got to see the game last night with the Golden State Warriors against the Celtics, and here's the pattern I don't like with the Golden State Warriors. They put themselves in a hole, and then they try to make a miraculous comeback at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. You can't keep winning games like that. I don't care if you're at home or away. You can't keep relying on Steph Curry to just shoot threes and just shoot you into a victory. And so I don't know what they're going to do about that, but they seem to play their way into a hole and then try to play their way out. And I don't know if they do it for dramatics. I don't know if they have the ability to just shut down teams in the first three quarters. But I'm starting to see that pattern. I really don't like. But your eye test of the NBA, sir.
Yeah, we'll start staying in the West. I think you know that Golden State is in trouble. And what I mean by that is when you start looking at the standings and you see that the Houston Rockets are the ninth team in the West right now. I mean, kudos to their coach coming over, trying to change the culture, play a little bit. But we know that they're very, very young still. And even though Golden State is older, you still expect a lot more. Phoenix is number 10 right now. Um, it's just, it looks bad from that standpoint. Oklahoma City is still at number 2. Very interesting. I'm not sure how long Minnesota can stay there with Gobert and also with the big fella shooting threes, Towns. They look like they're trying to come together, but they make me nervous when I think they'll come to fall down to come down to regular Earth soon because of the fact that that's a long way to go. But I like OKC's toughness. I like Denver, of course, making moves. Sacramento's great. Dallas is really surprising me, despite what they're with a two-headed monster of Duka Doncic, and then also with Kyrie Irving, who's been hurt, but the way they've been playing lately has been very interesting as of late. In the East, got to take your head off to Orlando. It's playing real well. Still hanging around at 4, even though I don't understand it. And I guess I don't know how they play ball, but it's old school ball, but they're still right there. Talking about the New York Knicks, number 5. They got a lot of toughness, a lot of grit. They are they basically seem like they play ball the way that the coaches. So their Coach Tibbs is really hard nosed, tough guy, and that's how they kind of go after it. So if you have more talent, you can beat them sometimes. But if you don't want it, they will take it from you. Brunson, I think that has a lot to do because you have guys like Brunson on the squad. Like Indiana too. Indiana's just young with the A slot. What I really want to see is if we get at some point close to the trading deadline, I want to see what Toronto's going to do because they're at number 11. They're struggling. It might be time to strike up the band, blow some things up, make some moves. I know that teams like Miami and Indiana would love to have like a Siakam, right? But and even but it's going to take some real pieces to get Siakam. Take some real pieces. I think Scotty Barnes is the guy they hold on to for the future, but a guy like Siakam could really add some flavor to a team like Miami, right? But you got to give a lot of pieces to get him. So be interested to see how it comes together. I think there's a lot of teams that are really pushing through. And my question, last but not least, as I get off on this point, is there's no way Detroit can be that damn bad. I watched them a little bit, and my man Monty Williams, the coach over there. I'm trying to figure this out. I don't know if it's some pompous young guys trying to play some ball. There's no chemistry. I watched them. They didn't seem that bad, but to only win 2 games or 2-25, I don't get that.
To me, it's attitude. Their attitude is not there as a team that's going to go in there, compete every night and win. And that's what it comes down to sometimes, your attitude. We've seen lesser teams or lesser talented teams win, at least stay 500 or seem like they're trying to win ball games. I look at the Bulls. I'm not a terribly talented team, but they stick in there and they try to win ball games. You can see the effort. But with Detroit, I just don't see it. Well, we're going to tackle real quick men's and women's college basketball, and I'm going to spotlight some players in college basketball. But before I do that, I want to say Purdue has taken over the number one, ranking. Oh, and they beat Arizona. Arizona is soft inside. They showed it. Purdue exposed it, and Purdue's guards showed up and showed out in that game. And as long as those point guards are playing well and they got that inside game, they're going to be really hard to beat. They're followed by Kansas, Houston, Arizona falls to number four, followed by UConn, Marquette, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Baylor, who dropped one against Michigan State. Now all of a sudden, Michigan State has figured it out, and I think Oklahoma and North Carolina is going to play. North Carolina's number 11 team. They're playing tonight, and that should be an interesting game. I got my money on North Carolina overtaking Oklahoma. I think they're just a little bit stronger inside. But your eye test last week on college basketball.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Purdue was able to overcome Arizona. Like you said, Arizona, that lack of the center being tough inside. But you got to realize too, the Purdue center is a pro. Okay, he's a pro. He's dominant. And you mentioned about the Purdue guards shooting well. They don't always do that. If you got to realize this is the same team that lost to Northwestern, right? And Northwestern, I think, lost to a HBCU team recently as well.
Mm-hmm.
So one night, anything can happen. But one of the other teams that I'm looking at, and I think is going to be okay. Um, they're up and down. They're young. I like Kentucky. I do. I think they're going to get better. You got some other big guys coming in, like I mentioned before in January. I like the way that they play. They have no fear. They jump shooters. They have guys. They have a nice, well-rounded roster. And I think as the season goes on, they're going to get better. I think they're going to surprise some people from that standpoint. Houston is Houston. All we need Houston could possibly win a national championship. Question is, can you hit free throws and can you hit a couple jumpers when it counts?
That's
Two
Kentucky's
things,
issues too. Kentucky,
huh?
Calipari teams within 2 minutes of the game they can't hit free throws.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with that, but sometimes the Calipari's teams are so good. Like this team right now, they can play with anybody in the country. They're just young. They're young, and sometimes they get in their own way. Too much one on one, right? But like Wagner, sometimes one on one. But they have guys like Shepard, the young Shepard guy over there that can play, and you get centers. And I think down the line, Calipari is gonna try to mold them like he normally does, where they really start to understand what he's doing, and it'll be interesting. UConn's young. I like UConn. They're just not as seasoned as last year. Last year, it was like the players were seasoned. Now they're talented. They just don't understand it. And you know how much I love Shaka Smart, but I'm not sure if this Marquette team is that good. That's just me. I mean, I like them. I like the guard play. They have the forward who's really good, but I don't know. I'm not seeing everything what everybody else is seeing. So we'll see as we move forward.
All right, players to spotlight, players to watch. Marcus Sears, senior guard out of Alabama. He's averaging about 21.2 points a game. Somebody to watch. Xavier Johnson from Southern Illinois, averaging 24.8 points a game. Jaden Ledee, senior forward in San Diego State, 22.2 points a game. That's one guy to watch. I'm only supposed to do three. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to put Doug McDaniels from Michigan. The guard from Michigan is one to watch. And I'll be spotlighting players all season, but those are four players from the men that I want to spotlight. The women's side, we're going to go to the women's side real quick, but the players I want to spotlight is Juju Watkins, USC point guard, freshman guard. She is one to watch. Malaysia Fawali, freshman guard, University of South Carolina. Must see TV. She reminds me of Magic Johnson, female Magic Johnson. And Alyssa Piley, the senior forward from Utah. Those are players that you want to keep your eyes on in the women's college basketball. But you got South Carolina, and they're just wrecking everybody they're coming coming up against. Dawn Staley is doing her thing. South Carolina, followed by UCLA. I think you got a chance to see UCLA recently. North Carolina State, Iowa, Texas, USC, LSU is number 7, Colorado number 8, Stanford number 9, and Baylor number 10. So you did not hear UConn in the top 10, and you haven't seen that in a long time. Your eye test, if you have any, on the game that you saw or on college basketball.
Yeah, I'm here in Columbus, Ohio, and I just finished doing one of my 900 jobs, and I thought about it. It was a very cold night, and I said, you know what? Ohio State is hosting UCLA. The Ohio State women's basketball team was hosting the UCLA Bruins. UCLA is number 2 in the country, and Ohio State they're young, but they're very talented and they play real good basketball. So I wanted to see them face against the top team. Early on, Ohio State jumped out 7-0. They're excited. Everybody's jumping around. And then slowly but surely, UCLA comes back. But the one thing is UCLA goes on to prevail by about 10 points. But the one thing about UCLA is they're very dangerous. They have size. They have a 6'7" center. They have another 6'4", 5 power forward. They have length with nice forwards, and they have amazing guards. They have a guard by the name, first name is Kiki, like Kiki Vandeweghe. Amazing. I think that and they have the off guard uh, is an outstanding outside shooter, and they were able to contain the Buckeyes and do what they do. They like to run as well too. I think the starting guards from UCLA probably combined for like about 35 points together, and they are very talented. You might want to watch very closely on UCLA. Damn good team.
All right, last second shots, man.
Last second shots. I'll just say this: we're getting turned into that season. The year's almost over. A lot of great things coming on for our basketball, football, the likes. Enjoy yourself. I think I have a week next week coming up. Be good to yourself before the end of the week is out. Do some good things for yourself. Enjoy. Take time to eat, drink, be merry, exercise, wherever the hell it is. Do something for yourself before the end of the year. Because I know I will before the end of the year. I'm going to do well and enjoy myself because nothing is promised and we're all blessed still.
Yeah, on a sad note, everybody knows I'm a big North Carolina Tar Heel basketball fan, and we lost one of the top players in college, Eric Montrose, to cancer at 52, which is a young age. And peaceful journey. This guy wasn't, he didn't have a lot of fanfare. He just held down the middle of North Carolina and helped them win a championship in Dean Smith's day. So, so rest in peace. And it's just a sad day in Tar Heel country. But he was a solid player and didn't do much in the pros, but didn't have to. Once you're in Carolina and you make your mark in Carolina, you're always a Tar Heel and you're always respected and loved as a Tar Heel player. So rest in peace. That's our show. We'll see you next week.